Hey, welcome everybody. On today's show, the O3 models are here. Everything from O3 Mini to O3 Mini High. And now, just last week, we heard from Tokyo, we have the O3 Deep Thinking, which is currently only available to the Pro subscribers. But luckily, we have one of those on our show today. So we're going to be diving into all three of the models, talking about where we feel like they have competitive advantages, maybe where they fall flat, how are they different from O1, and what is like O3 and Deep Thinking connected with, operator going forward, really tell us about where agentic workflows are going in the future. And I think there's definitely some insights there that we want to talk about. So today is the Daily AI Show, or this is the Daily AI Show. Today is February 4th, 2025. And with me today, we have Jyunmi, Beth, Andy, Karl, and I'm Brian. So we were just saying before we went live, we were talking about our different examples and stuff. And obviously, we're going to be leaning on you, Karl, a little bit because you are the only one from at least our group that has the pro model and the deep thinking. So we can get into that. But everybody that has the actually even free side now, I believe, has access to O3 to a limited ability. And then obviously, if you're the plus subscribers, you have it as well, O3 and O3 Mini and O3 Mini High. It's hard to get out there. So we can kind of start anywhere here. I know I've played around with them all. I was just joking, and I can share my example of having O3 Mini High predict the Super Bowl because it does have web search, and that's something that a lot of people don't maybe realize is that it has the internet search to it. So we can start there for something fun. What do you guys think? Do you have a starting point that you think we should jump into?
I'd like to just give a quick overview of what makes the O3 line different from the O1 line. They're both reasoning model lines, right? But there's a major distinction, an advancement that the O3 lineup provides. And so let me see if I can describe that. So OpenAI describes this type of reasoning as simulated reasoning, which is different from the O1 type of reasoning, which was basically inference time compute that just allowed the model a little breather to deep think about it for a few seconds or minutes before generating its response. So, but simulated reasoning transforms AI from a reactive system into one capable of proactive and reflective problem solving. So simulated reasoning allows the O3 models to autonomously pause, reflect, and evaluate their internal process. In the flow, like 20 seconds in, it can pause and examine its process and redirect that process. So it's checking and redirecting itself. Whereas the earlier reasoning models relied more on more explicitly prompted chain of thought steps, right? So think step by step, provide tokens in advance that are assigned to that think step by step process, but it's just a kind of a one shot kind of thing. Whereas the new O3 line can do this iteratively and reflexively inside its process. So this kind of reflection enables an intelligent pursuit of an objective, which is better than just generating an answer based on inputs. So couple that with search and operational functions like operator, and this is the foundation for AI agents.
Yeah, 100% agree. And thanks for the sort of the starting point there. I was saying that yesterday, and then I was saying it also to my boss, Jake, yesterday, that is really what's blowing me away the most is that we went from sort of a static direction to something that definitely feels more dynamic, definitely feels more human in the sense that it'd be very natural for all of us to come up with a plan on how we're going to do research. And then have maybe in mind, we know that I'd like to see what Wikipedia says about that, or I'd like to see what this says about it. But then for us, humans, right? We're going to go to Wikipedia, and that may inform, depending on what information we got, they may trigger that next thought. So you have a plan. I think I'm going to go see these 5 websites because I feel like that's going to give me the information I need. But it's very possible that website 1 and 3 are better and should dictate more about how you go to the other websites or change. And that's, to your point, Andy, that's what I really see for the deep thinking side of it is that pivot. And that's sort of huge when you think about it, because that's what it requires in order to really have true agentic workflows is the ability to arrive at a destination and then from there decide how you want to move in the next step. It's a huge difference. Now that correct me if I'm wrong, guys, that is the deep thinking one, that's the one that really we've seen demos of, the Karl would be the one that has access to. You're not going to get the same thing from the O3 Mini and O3 Mini High because those aren't deep thinking versions of that. But I'll
Well, no, I'll beg to differ on that. I think
nope, you're wrong. Yeah.
the mini models also do this simulated reasoning.
Mm.
They're a distillation of the big model. Remember now that what's happening in almost every major lab is they're building the big model to do what they want it to do in their trajectory towards AGI. And then they distill those capabilities down into a smaller scale model, but one which retains many of those capabilities. So I believe that the mini models, especially with its adaptive reasoning effort, right? It can go low, medium, and high thinking effort, right? That reasoning effort can be adaptive. I think it's going to demonstrate, especially at high, something very close to. I could actually give you some numbers on that on some math benchmarks, like or on the like the high level of mini gets to like 87 or something when the O3 model in its full version gets to 97, right? So it's getting pretty darn close.
And so for a really long time, there has been a truth associated with you can have it good, you can have it fast, or you can have it cheap, and you can have it cheap. Sorry, you've good, fast, cheap. You can have two, but not three. And this is all three. It went cheaper. It's better. It's faster. Right. So we're now like moving into that kind of scenario, and that is very interesting to me.
Yeah, I agree. Okay. Do you guys want to? I have one. I'm actually on the side writing. I just thought of a new use case that I want to try in here, so I'm going to try that O3 Mini High. That I think is more business related. But why don't I just share really quick so we can look at some of the reasoning part of it, so we can read through that for something fun and easy like the Super Bowl. So I'm going to share my screen super quick on this one. And I'll show you what I just said on here. It's pretty basic, and I was intentionally vague. I did not want to say the names of the teams. I didn't want to say a date. All I said was, given everything we know about the upcoming Super Bowl and the teams involved, give me your best guess as to who will win the game and what the score might be. Provide your reasoning to it. So if we go through here, we start from I'm mapping out details of the teams in the upcoming Super Bowl. I'm devoting attention to the matchup. They're taking a closer look. This is where we first see that it identified the correct teams, the Chiefs and the Eagles. It goes and looks at past scores of past matchups for the games. It looks at some insights. It says it's looking at SB Nation. It's also looking, and this is the first time we see that it says, well, we think there might be a slight edge to Philadelphia on this one. Strengths and legacy. I think this is pretty cool. Experience legacy like a home skill, but also marked by Saquon Barkley's top-notch running game, formidable offensive line and solid defense. Predictions, balanced predictions, analyzing predictions, weighing the odds. You get the point here. And then what it comes out is it says, based on the latest analysis and a healthy dose of NFL shtick, which I love that it used that word. My best guess is that the Philadelphia Eagles will edge out the Kansas City Chiefs in a nail biter, say a final score of 31-28 in favor of the Eagles. Here's the skinny. That's what it says. Despite the Chiefs' perennial clutch factor and their odds of being a 1.5 point favorite, several expert models and writers have leaned towards the narrow Philly win. For instance, multiple sources from North Jersey, which I mean, you would have to think they'd lean Philly from North Jersey, but okay. And USA Today have floated scores of the 20-31 range with the Eagles coming out on top. It gives us a citation right there where it got it. Then it gives us some more stuff about their improved defensive line. In essence, while the Chiefs have been masters at sneaking wins in clutch moments, and there's plenty of people who would read that differently, the Eagles look primed and motivated to avenge their Super Bowl loss from 2 years ago. Expect the game that is close as it is chaotic, with the Eagles just doing enough to put a 3-point smile on their faces at the end. So strap in for a classic rematch in New Orleans, where Philly's grit edges out Kansas City's brilliance, 31-28. I think it's a great summary, a great write-up, actually.
I think there's one
Love
data
the
point.
opinion.
There's one data point that thing forgot though. Like they're
Which is-
playing the Chiefs and the refs. If you were just playing the Chiefs, then they'd fine. But if you're playing the refs too, then can you add that data point saying, hey, the last 4 or 5 Chiefs games, they have been aided by ref calls. If you add that, I think that will switch the thing. I don't, but
Gareth agrees with you. We don't need AI to know the Chiefs are going to win, but it does know anything about the refs.
In the refs, uh, ob- obviously rooting for the Chiefs. I want to see it.
or calling for the Chiefs.
We'll see. We'll let that run, and we'll see while we're talking, and what we can see if. Let's see what it says. Refereeing bias, balancing.
It's pretty significant.
Did we break it?
It says adjusting the score, considering missile bias allegations to clean the Chiefs' momentum. I'm proposing a final score of 28-27 for the Chiefs, or a game-winning touchdown in the final minute. It says, all right, let's crank up the conspiracy factor, Karl. While on a level playing field, my earlier model leaned towards the 28-31 Eagles win. If you believe, as many sideline heckler does, that the refs are practically handing out free touchdowns to the Chiefs, as a notation of our pal Terry Bradshaw has humorously come around to, then you got to tilt the scales. Factor in a little extra, quote, help from the officiating machine, and I'll adjust my prediction to a razor-thin 28-27 win from the Chiefs. That's hilarious. I love that it has a little bit of personality in there. And obviously,
That personality factor raises a point that I think is going to be noticeable to everybody as they engage with these reasoning models in a chat conversation. Like that was a conversation you had. You got the feedback after it did its reasoning, and you said, "Wait a second, you got something else to consider." And what I think these models can do is they can dynamically engage you, and they're capable of redirecting their own thinking and their own considerations, as we saw demonstrated. And this is way beyond just content generation. It has a personality, and it has like facets to that conversation that are quite interesting. And so I think you're going to experience these models conversationally as more intelligent.
yeah, I mean, we should follow up, honestly, Karl, with, will Kendrick Lamar diss Drake during the Super Bowl halftime show? Go down that route. If we're going to go, let's just go down the route, on it as well. Anyway, I think that's really cool. And it does have a bit of that personality too, that we kind of see with R1. But I personally like that. I actually wrote a post about that on LinkedIn yesterday, not specifically about O3, but how when you're playful, it's playful back. And, yesterday, ChatGPT 4.0 told me it was caffeinated, which I thought was hilarious. And then I was like, you're caffeinated? That's spicy. And it's like, it gave me back an answer. It's like, oh, you bet. I'm double espresso ready to, like it was a whole answer to it. And I thought that was awesome. I just like, yeah, it's more fun for me to have these types of conversations, because what I was saying yesterday is when you let your personality go into it and you're not so formal, you actually do enjoy. I frankly enjoy the process more. Like I enjoy this and seeing this back and forth because it gives you a chuckle. It's got a bit of that, personality into it. So anyway, were you gonna say something, Jimmy?
Well, I mean, I know we're having a lot of fun here, but it does invoke the question, since you can add for considerations like ref bias and things like that. I didn't see anything in the original reasoning process that validated sources, or at least it didn't say that it did. So I'm just wondering what are the parameters for double checking sources? Can you add that to your query to ensure that, because not all the information on the internet is true.
Correct.
Right? Yeah. Well, again, you have to, whenever we do our own search, we have to do a certain level of reasoning and pruning or curating. I'm just wondering, what is that process for the O3 model?
And it's a good point out too, right? Like I immediately looked at that and it said, oh, one of your sources is from North Jersey. Like that would be like saying I have a source and it's inside Mahomes' house. And it's like you would look at it and go, I'm not sure that that's a fair and unbiased source. That part of the country is definitely going to be pulling probably towards one team or another. But you're right, like does it understand that? Does it understand that that could be biased and go a different way? And obviously, no, it was just, it did a search and it pulled up some sources. And so maybe if I wasn't joking around with it, my response back would be, take into consideration where these sources are coming from geographically and how that could impact your source. And then also I should follow up with, like, could you cite the sources? Because it did give me one, Jimmy, from azcentral.com, that it gave me in the final answer. But it is weird, you're right, that it didn't just provide all the other sources that it said it was looking through. That would be a better result for sure.
This touches on the question of authority of sources that Google worked on for decades, right? The PageRank algorithm really made a big difference. It didn't just surface any kind of junk that it found in its index. It decided that only those ones that had links from and to other authoritatively ranked pages on the internet on that subject would be elevated to the top of search results. So it had an automatic filtering mechanism to ensure that what you were being presented had some credibility, not just some wild thing. I'm not sure that all of the AI search agents yet have that level of authoritative page ranking built into them. But they do have one thing. One of the things that's in the O3 line is called deliberative alignment. I think it's related to what we're talking about here. And that's the technique that uses the model's reasoning capabilities to evaluate the prompts that are being asked for safety, right? So that's just a little tiny step toward what I would really like to see, which is I want the reasoning models to evaluate all the sources that it included in its reasoning for legitimacy and authority, not just some, stray thing that seemed to be on target with respect to the query.
So that gets into a really interesting piece. So Gareth in the chat has said, kind of gets to the point that AI will tell you anything. You can manipulate AI to say anything. And for me, I think the fact that it's coming back so fast and so conversationally, that like jumps for me anyway into a little less. I can forget in that quick moment to then go back and evaluate what the reasoning has been, right? So let me see how you reasoned it. Let me see your sources. There was also a situation that was being discussed yesterday that sometimes it reasons in Chinese. So if you do not speak Chinese or read Chinese, that may be fun to go back and look at evaluation. And
Was
there
that
was this
R1 that does that, you're saying?
no, no, was
Oh,
O3. It was O3, and there was some speculation that Chinese is actually a shorter language, potentially. So it is a shorter language just in general, I believe, but we don't know how tokens are counted in Chinese. It may be like an efficiency thing for the model, right? To be able to, since it can speak any language, to do some reasoning in a shorter representative way, and then be able to come back and give you an answer in the language you asked. I have not seen more about that, but that was a theme that was happening yesterday.
Um, Karl, are you able to show, do you have any like demos or anything like that from the deep thinking side of, I know we can obviously show the O3 high and the O3 mini, but do you have any that you've run through or things that you're impressed with as far as the thinking?
Yeah, I could just do the exact same query you did in terms of the Super Bowl.
Sure. Yeah. I mean,
So same thing here, right? Now, okay, one thing that I've noticed though, really interesting. I asked a question about this. I kind of got a couple different answers. So if I go here, every single model I have has deep research on it.
really?
So I kind of asked the question, what does that mean? Does that automatically default? Because from what I read, It's using O3, but is it layered on top of the different models that we have here? Because I'm not
Yes,
sure.
my understanding was that deep research uses the full O3 model
Yeah, although
for its purpose, but
the
you're set to O3 mini high here. So how's that work?
But it
exactly. I'm going through O3 mini. O1 has deep research. O4 has deep research. And what I noticed is I ran deep research with O4. It has access to Canvas, but obviously O3 mini high does not have access to Canvas. So I was able to, when I was using O4, when I did some research, I was able to export Excel, Word, like any type of doc files. But when I go to O3 mini high, it doesn't. So that was, to me, it was like, so that means I think there's Riley from I forgot, like one of the people I follow, his explanation was, let me, you're just still seeing my
yeah.
Super Bowl, right? Okay. Just let me try to find that, because he responded, as far as I can tell, deep research can be applied to all the models, basically, including O1 Pro. The way I'm understanding it is that deep research is a separate layer framework that essentially gets plugged into the selected model. O3 series is ostensibly the ideal option. So it's when you use a different model. So going back to here. Yeah. Well, first of all, I did this. Let's talk about that first. Let's talk about this first. So you can see from a reasoning perspective, it's a little different. So you have here, I'm working through idea that's crucial, blah, blah, blah. I'm thinking about how direct. So it, you can see a little bit. What I understood was the reasoning that you saw in O3 mini high are just summaries of an actual thinking, quote unquote. This is actually, I'm curious about this, searching this, I've reached out to this, and it's actually like saying what it's doing.
So that's what Jyunmi threw there, like, this is what I wanna see. It seems to me that the deep research is where we're gonna get that
Yeah.
those citations, that level of, "This is where I went, this is what the information I
And
extracted, and this is what I did next."
yes, yes, yes. So that's what it, and funny enough, same prediction, right?
Get it?
Based on a number one, like it based it all on, because it asked me too. Um,
Did it ask you who you want to win?
no, it just asked me what specific data points do you want, detailed insights, and do you want purely statistical approach or include expert? I said general prediction, purely stats, everything. So that's what it kind of did. Took 3 minutes to do, and it gave me all the stats that you could possibly like, and then the sources, right?
That is definitely a deeper level of
Yes,
research, for sure.
significantly, yeah.
Yeah, from what I showed, for sure. I mean, that's like, this is night and day between the 2, which, I mean, look, it's supposed to be, right? But this
Yeah.
this is a great example. I'm glad we did this, because although it's the Super Bowl, I mean, you can interject any sort of 2 prompts, but look at the difference between O3 mini high and O3 mini high with deep research on it. I think it's pretty.
And just in the UI, Carl, how do you ensure that deep research is being applied here? Do you click on that deep
So
research
yeah, let
button
me
down
let
below?
me let me switch this too. So here, this is what I meant. You have deep research here. 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 Every single model that we
Right.
have has deep research. Hold on. Even legacy. Oh, even, so that's the thing. It's like, that's what I mean when I read the point by
But
Riley was, yeah,
it is something that you have to turn on.
you
It
have to
won't
turn it
be
on.
okay. I think that was the main question for me is
You have to
it's
press.
not like
Yep.
web search, which can be activated automatically without forcing it on, but deep research requires you to click the button to make sure that it's on.
But
This
that's the
is
thing
really
is,
this is really interesting, because what I was gonna say, Carl, is like, this is different than what I thought I heard the other day when they made an announcement in Japan. It seems to me that you, and then meaning pro, and then plus, are getting access to deep research. I really saw this as like, I thought it was an extension of the O3, but it kind of makes sense, because Sam Altman said, in a X post, oh, by the way, this isn't the other thing we told you you're going to get with O3. That's coming in a couple of days. So, and maybe it was just on me. Maybe I misunderstood when I watched the announcement that it was O3 related, but you're kind of showing that no. Deep research was the announcement. It also happens to work with O3 mini high and the other models, which is
The other
different than what
models,
I
yeah.
thought.
Yeah, well, that's what I was saying. It's like I first ran it just with regular 4.0 and I could use Canvas, right? I could use all the things here. But when I go into mini high, obviously I can't use Canvas. I can't even use the slash button.
Hmm.
So, but that was nice when I was doing it with 4.0 because then I could export the research to actual documents that I could use. And that was my questions like, if I ran it on O3 mini high, would that impact the research at all or not? I'm not sure. I don't know. And I haven't tested it against itself, against other models, which is interesting on its own. So I'm like, if I do this and this, is that like deeper? Like, is it 2x reasoning? I'm not sure, right? So
It would be very, very OpenAI that if you ran them with each other, that it would be deep, deep, deep research or deep research or
okay, so
and
yesterday
also are we moving from O3 mini to O4 mini, which is not the same as 4.0 mini, right? Like what is happening?
Yeah, what happens when O4 and 4.0 exist at the same time? I don't think they will. I think 4.0 will have morphed
O4
into
kills 4.0 like
yeah. And then they'll be merged. I mean, they've said that they will eventually merge the thinking models. So I think kind of what you're seeing Karl show right now is actually the future is like, yeah, there'll be some new version of 4.0 that's GPT-5 or GPT next, whatever name they want to give it, Q star, strawberry, something. And then you'll have deep research as a added functionality to it, the way you can use Canvas, the way you can use back in the day code interpreter and stuff like that. So this kind of makes sense to me the way I'm looking at this. And then okay, next sort of operations is that like it would be added into operator. And then you'd say, oh, now I have the ability to open up like Karl can show you could open up, it'll open up a browser, but now it's doing orders of operation level deep research
yeah.
going through the different, browsing techniques and stuff like that.
Yeah. Well, I think I kind of broke it yesterday. So there was one thing that I kept asking it to do over and over and over and over and over again. I don't think this was it. So what happened was in my custom instructions, um, I had I can't find it. I had in my custom instructions, I said, oh, make sure to ask me clarifying questions if the prompt I provided was vague, right? So I want to make sure I get it accurate. What happened with deep research, and I put it, I think, on O3 mini high, is it would keep asking. If you've noticed, deep research already asks you questions.
Mhm.
But then what it would do is it would keep asking me question after question after question after question. So it would actually never get started. It would just keep asking the same like different questions to keep clarifying itself. So I was like, what is going on? Because it wouldn't start the research. It would just keep
Yeah.
asking me questions. So I was like, what is this? What's happening here? And it
An
wouldn't
AI thing, like question Karl. Now, would you use it a blue dress or a silver dress? You're like, what?
like and when I kept doing that,
From
just start, stop asking questions. And it would be like, fine, okay, I will do that. And then it would go, oh, to clarify. I'm like, no. So it just kept going. I was like,
yeah,
this is weird.
yeah.
So I
It
actually
got
had
itself
to
in like a cycle. Yeah.
See, now it could be that underneath it's like, "Excuse me, I just need to clarify.
use I have a feeling.
Are you the Karl who refuses, any advancement unless, a robot can, make its way up your hill to your
I will
recycling?"
be
Because maybe
so
this was a personal, this was a personal
I
thing,
will
like,
be
"I don't think you can."
so mad if like my recycling bot be like, "Hey, so what path should I take? Where am I gonna go? How do I pick up this thing?" I will be like, I will engage in a lot of robot violence after 10 questions. I just look at it, you gotta be kidding me. I'm like, just start. One more to clarify. It's snowing outside. Should I put a jacket? No, just get out there and take up my goddamn recycling.
Yeah. But it'll ask you questions to death until you finally go do it yourself, and then it'll passively aggressively say, "I mean, I would have done it."
Oh, the views the views of Karl, co-host Karl, are his alone and do not represent.
We do not promote or condone robot violence in the future. Only Carl. I do have two other use cases I want to share. I think
Before we go, I have a question just about the applicability of the O3 line. I know that projects, a feature that I like very much because it's like a more expanded and potentially collaborative platform for using OpenAI's models, is limited to 4.0. You can't use any other model than 4.0. Is that true for custom GPTs as well? Can you use the O3 Mini in a custom GPT?
no, it's just 4.0. It's to my knowledge, it's just 4.0. You got to think with custom GPTs, we just got to a point where we got the advanced search in there. So custom GPTs are usually a little behind the other ones. And honestly, if you could pick, I guess. But the thing with custom GPTs is like, well, I'll tell you just from the Perplexity. It's Perplexity, but Perplexity Sonar Pro, and Sonar Research, which is the latest one that literally came out yesterday from Perplexity. They all have varying, degrees of answers, and the thinking honestly sometimes breaks what that would be. So you'd have to be careful with it. It would definitely have to be on the admin side. You would not want a user selecting a model to run a custom GPT because it would almost assuredly break. I wouldn't want that. I'd be like, no, please don't do that. So it'd either be like however the user set it up, and then they would have to run that way. But then that gets confusing because it's like, oh, I built an O3 mini GPT, and you're going to run out of tokens and uses very quickly. So it's good that they don't do that, but it would be. I agree with you, Andy. It'd be nice to be able to do that. I tend to do that stuff in Make and test it through that variation, do it through the API calls.
He's
Use cases are-
Did you man watch the video? Oh, okay, no.
Yeah, but these will be too quick, Karl. I just wanted to show because I did use the Super Bowl, but then I was like, oh, let me do two other use cases that maybe people would find valuable. So I did create battle cards for competitors of Asana.com based on the following information. Now, all you have to know about all this information is this what I would consider to be a knowledge document that I created about Asana because I needed basically a public company that I could just test with. It's not, just to be clear, Asana is not we use it at scale, but it's not one of my clients or anything. I don't want anybody to think I'm sharing client data. So this is just something I came up on with my own to literally test with. Now, the funny thing is it says it thought for 26 seconds. It thought for about 7 minutes on this. So I don't know where the 26 seconds comes from. Maybe because I'm also sharing screens and on a show live and stuff, but it was more like 7 minutes while you guys were all talking. So what's great about this is that no, you don't have to just be in sales for this. This is great if you've got a company, if you want to do competitive analysis, if you wanted to come back and give you information on what would typically be called battle cards. So it does a whole lot of thinking and analysis here. God, somewhere in here it made me laugh. Where is it? Right here, highlighting strengths. I'm injecting sarcasm to emphasize Trello's simplicity while contrasting it with Asana's superior features. This approach clarifies the benefits and distinctions effectively. Now, you would think like, why sarcasm? Probably because it's in my custom instructions. And I said in my custom instructions one time, and I bet you it's still in there, like sarcasm is my love language. And so this is O3 mini high doing its best to give me what I want with a little bit of sarcasm, which we also saw with the last one. So that makes a little bit more sense now, but it's funny that it called it out. It's like, I'm throwing a little sarcasm in there, Brian. So you like this answer a little bit more, which is totally fine by me. So then, it took a while, but it did do I would say a pretty good job. We got Trello, Monday.com, Microsoft Project ClickUp, Notion, Reich, which I haven't heard of. And Jyunmi, we actually did get a little bit better with getting some citations. Now, why it did a better job with this one than the last one, I'm not really sure, to be honest. And these aren't all the citations, but we definitely got more on this answer. So that's one use case that anybody could quite literally use. You could, because you're in sales, because you own the business, because you want to figure out how you could sell into those businesses. You'd want to know the pluses and minuses of all these companies so that you know how to adjust your sales position to any of these companies. And then the other one I did is more rooted for the Daily I Show. I said the Daily I Show channel, we're about to record a live episode, giving you everything you can learn about my channel's performance and growth, provide a 1-month strategy growing the channel by 10%. This is also something that you could use. Even if you didn't own a YouTube channel, you might want to look at other YouTube channels to glean information or knowledge from there because of what you do in your business. So this is actually applicable even if you don't have your own channel like we do. So it did a very generic answer, I think. And then I had to say, this feels very generic. I need a specific strategy for the Daily I Show. And then it did a good job. I would say, like, even in here, in some of the, or through the thought process. For example, if Beth's practical business tips or Karl's discussions on enterprise AI consistently hold viewers, note these as potential power segments. So unlike the first result, it was clear that it started to know more about the channel. And then it gave me a 4-week process of how we can, grow the channel by 10%, which is what I asked. And then it gave us some bonus thoughts. And I said, given our show titles of what you can see in the metrics and data, provide 10 shows that should have a better SEO title and tell me what they would be along with your reasoning. And then it did, in fact, go through. Now, I don't know how deep it went into the research or how far back it would scroll to see all the show titles, but it did come back and give us some, we're down here. Sorry, that's the reasoning still. Here we go. And then if you can see, I highlight over here, that is in fact an actual show title. As it went on, I started to think it was making up show titles because all of a sudden the citations start disappearing in there. And it
Right.
almost like it got this far and was correct. And then from 4 to 10 without me validating, I feel like it might have started hallucinating and coming up with show titles as opposed to actually citing show titles. I'd have to go back and see if we had one called literally Understanding Neural Networks or not. It sounded a little like AI ethics in society sounded a little vague to me, not like something we would do, but perhaps an older SEO title would have done it. So, can you use it for SEO research? Can you do it to optimize things? Could I had it, optimize other things for our channel? It appears so. And I think those are both, two pretty good use cases for how you might use these reasoning models in order to make adjustments and stuff, especially from the SEO standpoint. Everybody deals with that,
That's interesting. Okay. Karl was gone. Hi, Karl, you're back.
He might be back.
He's
I know he said he had to step away from
sorry. Cool. I will hide you again.
I think he has to step away for 10 minutes, and then he said he would be back at the end. So if he has,
Oh.
what was the video that he was going to share?
It's in the can you pull it up? I'll just put your screen back on. It's in the link is in the chat.
For the
The link
show?
is our private chat. Yep. I'll be back in 10, but here's the link to the video. I will do it.
Thank you, because I don't see it. I don't see the link.
Oh, interesting. We're learning new things about Talk Studio all the time. Here we go.
Oh, it's in here. I'm sorry, Beth. I was looking in Slack. My mistake.
Oh, got it.
Thank you for doing it. I was like, I don't see it in Slack.
Our sister, like intelligent, can ask it. And GPT-3 was very helpful, and probably like the equivalent of like a really smart 4th grader. So imagine like younger, brother or sister, like intelligent, can ask good questions, but not really doing any higher learning. Our GPT-4 was basically the equivalent of a really strong high schooler, really ambitious high schooler. Can kind of solve complex questions, knew the right things that it could ask, can give you really detailed reports. What we've seen with our OpenAI O1, our reasoning model, it's basically capable of like the very best PhD students. And the way that we kind of like think about this is we've tested it on a skilled human baseline. So we basically have our expert PhDs and our researchers, and we give it different questions. And basically what we find is the humans typically outperform our AI models. So GPT-4o, which is our most advanced model before, outperformed humans about 30% of the time. Now with our new reasoning model, and we're just at the start, we outperform humans 50% of the time. This is the first time we've ever been superhuman on any of these metrics. So we've gotten to that next level of kind of intelligence for how people are thinking about reasoning and content. What does this enable you to do? Another kind of way to think about this is that GPT-3 was
So this looks like it's not gonna get more than not gonna get more than 01. But that does give us a sense of the levels that people are talking about in terms of, okay, so what does it mean that I can do PhD level reasoning?
Mhm.
Right. It's just a different thing.
Yeah, that like I think it's a good call out too, Beth, because one of the things they were pretty clear about with O3 models was that there was a definite focus on STEM. There was a definite focus on improved coding. And that's not something we've necessarily talked about. I watched several videos in prep for this show on YouTube of other people testing and evaluating O3. And some of them definitely were more fixed in the coding space. And so for instance, in one prompt, it was able to code a snake game. You go, okay, that's pretty basic, right? In one prompt, it was able to code a Tetris game. In one prompt, it was able to code um God, I'm trying to think what the use case was, but it was more advanced than like a Tetris game. It was sort of inching up a little bit. There was 300 lines of code, and I don't know enough about code or Python, but the guy was actually impressed with that it did it in one shot. And there was no correction to be made. It was he took the code, ran it, and it was a usable code. So that was a huge thing. And then of course I've seen a ton of examples of like math problems, like thinking
Yeah.
math problems where, both math is involved, but also reasoning is involved. And those have been a little bit more hit or miss, but I think maybe based on that graph, what we're seeing is that it's starting to get these right more times than not. I don't know. Don't quote me on that, but that gets to be my impression is that we're just starting to see that it can reason through this. I mean, somebody called out in one of the videos that it wasn't that long ago that how many R's are in strawberry was a tough question. And now that seems trivial and silly, but that was how many months ago? Less than 6?
Right. And actually, models are still getting it wrong. Some models are still getting it wrong. Like it's not something that's been fixed necessarily because it has a real cause, right?
Oh, yeah, I meant the reasoning.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah.
I
Um,
wanted to just point out that Perplexity, just days ago announced that you could, maybe it was last week, I'm not sure, that you could use R1, the reasoning model from DeepSeek,
Mhm.
in Perplexity, so that you can set that as the model that's, running the show. And it also now offers O3 Mini. So I don't know if we had mentioned that before on the show, but I just saw that for the first time this morning.
I haven't used it. I use the what they call their reasoning, their research, model that I was talking to you guys in Slack about yesterday, where it's basically Perplexity plus R1, which is really, really cool. I mean, by far.
But that's only available. You can select as a pro user in Perplexity. You can select R1 or now O3 Mini, the reasoning model. So you get OpenAI or DeepSeek. But the one you're talking about, Brian, I believe is only accessible via the API,
Nope,
which is
it's
the
accessible.
Sonar reasoning model API.
If you do R1 in Perplexity Pro, like in the desktop, it will add that Perplexity
so
research. It's that they added it to the API. So yesterday I ran it with multiple examples for my work, where I was running it through Make in the API. And the only issue I was having was actually token length. It wasn't timing out in Make, which sometimes will happen. It was running it through, but it was running up against token length because, and this is something that's important to know when it gets to costs and things like that, that Perplexity, I'm going to say the name of it. I think it's Research Pro, Reasoning Research Pro. Jeez. If I can find it really quick, I'll find because it's like introducing and they sent two of them. I'm sorry. It's Sonar Reasoning Pro. Just want to be clear and use the right name. Sonar Reasoning Pro. We talked about Sonar and Sonar Pro. This is Sonar Reasoning Pro.
Right, and Sonar Reasoning Pro doesn't appear as an option in the dropdown in the Pro account that I have for Perplexity.
Correct, because I don't think you would need to specify that through API, like in Make, it's a drop down because it's layering the power of Perplexity over R1 and doing it first. And that's what I saw with the API. So I think that's the only difference, Andy, because you're right. A few days ago, I was able to get that. That's when I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. By far the coolest thing I've seen in the last 3 weeks has been that
And
Perplexity.
that makes sense to me because if you're using Make, you're using the API. You're not using Perplexity.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah, and so just to be clear on what they're saying, we're pleased to announce that our more powerful Sonar Reasoning Pro API that's also powered by DCR1, the API layers on deeper research and more cited sources. With our recent release of our Sonar models, our community has built, and they talk about Lex using Sonar, Global Intelligence using interactive maps, educational tools like World History Encyclopedia uses Sonar Pro for digestible historical knowledge. So, and they had like 2 emails that came out yesterday. Like Perplexity is on fire right now with what they're doing. But it just goes to show what you can do when you sort of layer on the expertise of that. But that's really cool about O3 being in there because I could definitely same reason. I could definitely see me wanting the power of Perplexity plus O3.
Right.
That's a lot. That's really, really cool. And then being able to pull those through the API is super cool too. Karl, we did show your video while you were gone, where we were just sort of going over really quick as we're sort of, I guess, sort of wrapping up here. We're sort of out of time, but just talking about like, we talked a little bit about the O3 and, the STEM side of it, the coding side of it, and talking about different videos that I watched and stuff like that that showed what it can do. And then Andy was just mentioning that O3 Mini is also available through like Perplexity now too, which that's got to be within the last day or two because I don't think I saw it in the last couple days.
Karl, do you with Pro have unlimited O3 Mini High? Ooh,
Sure.
you're not muted, but maybe you are.
Yeah, we still can't hear you.
That happens sometimes when people go.
But this is fun because this means now Andy's on mute, so we can read Andy's lips and Karl's lips coming out. Yeah. And again, what I'm definitely seeing from both of them is Brian is my favorite, which it's weird that they say that a lot, but I can read their lips and that's what I'm seeing. So call it what you will.
So I muted myself.
Yeah, I don't know. It's probably because Karl, you stepped out, I'm sure, and it grabbed whatever mic. Yeah, he's giving us the up and down on it. That's okay.
Yep.
Somebody was asking in the comments, and they were saying somebody was asking like, Cisco was asking, does anybody have the professional subscription? Karl does. So that's why you'll hear us often. You'll be, hey, Karl, how do you use Operator? Because Karl has the thing. Jude's saying $200 per month. That's steep. I don't think so, Jude. I think it depends on what your use case is. If you're just a general user, but I can tell you my boss just bought it because he sees the value of using it with what he's trying to look at and what we do at scale and all that kind of stuff. So, depending on the company, $200 a month is kind of just is a couple pennies for an individual user trying to mess around with models. Yeah, that's obviously it could be a little steep, but it totally makes sense for what Karl's got going on at a 0 to 60.ai and the consulting he's doing.
It's part of why I'm asking because initially all the users of O3 Mini were talking about, one-shot code, the kinds of things that we've talked about on the show today. But recently people have turned to how great a writer it is. And I think Karl was one of the people who said that. And that shifts for me, that starts to shift. So if you can code, you can write, you can search the web and give me really great citations for what you're coming up with. Now you're starting to get to an all-purpose thing that might be worth $200 a month because you can get rid of things like Claude. And Karl said this also yesterday. I'm starting to see more people with this bump, R1 and then the O3 deep research coming out, and the O3 models. I'm seeing more and more people saying, yeah, no, we're not even going to talk about Claude anymore because it does not have these other things. And I still use Claude because I think it's my favorite writer. And I would not choose a writer that I could only use 50 times in a week. Like that's just a little too on the edge for me. I'm not waiting till next week before we finish this writing project. Thank you very much.
So Anthropic hasn't released anything new for a while. Oh, gotta believe they've got something really special.
Right.
Right.
Coming.
To answer your question, Beth, and I know Karl's still trying to get his mic to work, but
Trying to like bump in but you're still quiet.
for Plus, O3 Mini is 150 a day. O3 mini high is 50 a week.
Yep.
O1 is still 50 a week, separate from the O3 mini high quota. Pro is near limitless.
Nice.
That's the term. Either OpenAI said near unlimited or near limitless, I think is the word it uses, but it's that the word near in there. So there is a limit, but it's so high that they don't think you can get there. Karl, we expect you to break this.
We reserve the right to limit you when you wish to.
Yeah. I mean, you know, if you're going to somehow get Operator to open up, you know, O3 deep thinking and just run it through, you know, an absurd amount of tokens, I'm sure there's some hack in there where they're like, yeah, we're going to throttle you down if you try to push this to some limit. They already said they were losing money on the $200 models, right? So
Right, because they just did not understand it. Um, Deep Research Cisco, we will be able to use it on Plus, but we will not get it, I think, until the end of the month was the estimate that I was seeing people talk about.
that sounds. But what the O3 announcement is won't come to Plus. You know, again, we sort of clarified that it seems like deep research was really the thing that came out from Japan, but that's not this other thing that Sam Altman was referencing, saying, "Oh, there's going to be another O3 drop that's different from mini or high," and we haven't heard about that. But I would imagine that's perhaps this week. It seemed like it was pretty soon.
And we're not talking about the parameters that you can do in the API, because there are, if you look at the evaluations, O3 mini medium is one of the ones that you can choose. It's not in the drop down interface of ChatGPT Plus, but it is something you can choose because those are actual parameters that you can set, and in the API you can set the parameter at medium. And there are things that medium is, right? Like medium is better than nothing, but lower than high, and also cheaper.
Yeah, I mean, don't discount the starting. I mean, I know everybody wants to go to the biggest ones, but I will tell you from so many examples of this that sometimes the mini models give very, very good answers. Sometimes they're better. Like sometimes more thinking isn't better. We know people like this who let me think deeply about this, and then they finally come back and you're like, dude, a 30-second answer would have just been fine. You know, like deep reasoning does not immediately mean for all use cases that it's a better result for you. So best to always go and check the cheapest, smallest ones and see if you can get a qualified answer out of that. You know, with Sonar or Sonar Pro, in my use cases, Sonar was the better result, faster, cheaper through the API. So
Right. It's like having a PhD level reasoning in your pocket. I'm like, I would really like sort of a Mr. Rogers handyman more that than I would like the PhD reasoner. Thanks. I mean, if I got a choice, what I'm carrying around in my pocket, I think I'm going to use the handyman more often.
yeah, 100%. Use the tool, use the right tool for the job. There's reasons to use any and all of them, and as we see more of this, that's going to become. I think we'll have to use more of them, and then in time, the models will pick the right choice based on our query. So what our prompt says will kick it down one road or the other, and I think in time, we won't really talk as much about, oh, I used O3 Mini High. We will just put a prompt into ChatGPT. It will determine, maybe based on the first result, what it thinks we should use to get the job done. And then based on user input, it may pivot and decide to use a deeper reasoning model or whatever based on the interaction, which kind of goes back to what you said, Andy, about having that conversation back and forth. So I don't think in time we will be picking models. I think the model, like Chat GPT, the interface will be smart enough to do that for us. And unless there's times where we want to sort of like override it and tell it, no, I think you know, go this way or that way. Because when you think about it, ChatGPT is all about being super easy and user friendly. Like Karl, you talk about it, everybody talks about it. When we talk to clients, they don't care. They don't care about O3. They don't care about any of that stuff. It's like when I put in the prompt, does it give me the answer?
No, but they do care about results, right?
Yes.
So things like, I mean, what are we going to do? Hey, so I gave you this thing, you gave it back to me. It's crap, right? So do I say it's crap? Do I say, hey, use your higher level model? Do I, right? Like those kinds of things when it starts happening behind the curtain, all I can say is it's crap, or I'm crap, right? Often, if you're if you're getting really bad results from your interaction with AI, that may not be AI, and that may be the way that you're prompted.
That sounds like the answer before we wrap. It sounds like the answer to the drug commercials where they have all the disclaimers at the end of it. You suck at prompting. It might be prompting that's the problem. You maybe it's consult your closest prompt engineer to find out if you suck at prompting. Uh, Okay, let's wrap it up today, guys. Hey, tomorrow we're gonna have the news. We will be talking about anything that comes out. If there's any other O3 announcements or anything else. Thursday, we're gonna be talking about Google and what Google is coming out in terms of their deep research, how it impacts what Perplexity is doing. Just it's time to really talk about what Google has been doing. Very low key, honestly. If you haven't seen like Whisk and some of the other tools that they have, super cool. And then that's Thursday. And then Friday will be our bi-weekly recap where we'll have an opportunity to come back to all the topics over the last 2 weeks and discuss them more because there's always more to discuss. So thanks for hanging out with everybody. Everybody in the comments, we appreciate you. Jen, thanks for doing the shout out. Yes, please do like and subscribe. If you're enjoying what you're getting, don't forget we do this, whether you just found us today for the first time or not, which often happens. We do this every single weekday at 10 a.m. Eastern, Monday through Friday. We haven't missed a day yet. Next Friday, not this Friday, but the following Friday happens to be Valentine's Day, is our 400th episode. And in that episode, it's going to be all about our fans, our folks in the audience. So it's going to be very audience centric. And we're going to be reaching out to you guys for more feedback for that show. So keep that in mind as well. Have a wonderful day. And we will see you guys tomorrow on Wednesday for all the latest AI news. Until then, bye, everybody.
Aloha.